Hey, that backdrop there is incredible. That's a practice facility there. Are you guys doing meetings there and everything? The other way. Yeah, you're good. Is that where meetings
Yeah,
happen
we
and everything like that?
yes, we got a lot of stuff set up. I'm gonna show you guys the setup actually.
Yeah, please
Um,
do.
Wow.
just a bunch of
Oh,
stuff in between partitions, meeting rooms. This is where we also eat. Obviously, it's a little different than what we're used to, but it works.
yeah. So, whenever do you guys practice there as well? And does everybody just kind of clean up the field right before you go out to practice, and then they have to rebuild it all every single day?
That's exactly right. Unless we practice outside, but Buffalo. Once this weather starts turning, we're gonna have to be spending a lot of time in here. So it's gonna be a lot
Yeah.
of moving and shuffling parts. But like I said, it gets the job done.
How do you feel going into week 13, Josh? It's year 3 for you. Is this the most comfortable you've felt in an NFL season this far into it? The team obviously came out hot, had to go through some stuff. Feel like we still got everything in front of us that you could possibly want. How do you feel going into week 13, Josh?
No, I feel really good. Sitting at 8-3, and I believe we were 8-3 at this time last year, but completely different feeling. We understand what it's going to take to get to where we want to get to. We're trying to win the division for the first time since '95. So that was the year before I was born. But we know that 8 wins isn't going to do it. We got to keep pushing. We got the Niners on Monday night and some primetime games coming up. So we got to stay tuned and stay focused on the task at hand, and that's one game at a time.
Playing the Niners in Arizona, that should be a blast. Obviously, COVID, there's a lot of things going on. Let's take a trip back. You get drafted 7th overall, and I remember learning about you through the draft process. Huge arm, obviously, a lot of scouts loved you. Then you end up at the Buffalo Bills. First year, what was the transition into the NFL like from smaller school into the NFL? How would you document that first year? Because what I'm going to get to here is the incredible jump you took from year 1 to year 2 and then to jump from year 2 to year 3. Is it all mental, you think, or is there things that you've worked on that from that first year to year 3 that you've kind of got to where you are and where you're headed to go?
Yeah, well, physically, I think I'm a completely different person as far as how my mechanics are within my throw. My rookie year, I was still trying to figure out my stroke, and quarterbacks are all different. You can deliver the ball in different ways, and after kind of sitting down for a couple seasons and studying film of guys like Aaron and Russ and Tom, and just being able to kind of pick some things from what they're doing and apply it to myself. And it's been a long road, and it really hasn't been easy, but things are paying off. But that first year was just a whirlwind, from getting drafted to rookie OTAs to training camp to the actual season. And it just feels like it's compounded into this one long, never-ending saga. But you get to the end of it, you get 3.5 months off of absolutely nothing, which was obviously new to me coming from college. You got spring ball, you got spring workouts and all that jazz. But to have that time off and to just be like, go do your thing and have no one supervising you or telling you what to do, it was definitely tough. But I really appreciate the guys that were in the locker room at this time kind of showing me the way.
Your arm talent was something everybody talked about. So listening to you say, hey, I got to change my mechanics a little bit, were you scared that what got you to where you were, it's like if you change it, it could potentially take away from you? Or were you, for instance, when I was kicking field goals, I always had such a strong leg, I had a very strong leg, but sometimes that I had no idea where the hell was going. Like sometimes, you know what I mean? Because the ball is only this big or whatever, and if you hit like this thing, there's a chance it's going to go wherever. So a lot of people would be like, why don't you just not swing as hard and maybe have more control? And I was always like, that's not going to work. That's not my swing. Yeah. With your arm talent being how it was, and you could throw the ball 1/4 mile out there or whatever, but like, were you worried about changing the mechanics, or did you just knew that was a necessary, I have enough strength that I'll be able to change some things if I had to?
Yeah, it was kind of that thinking. Very similar to you, where when I tried to slow things down within my arm, it just didn't feel right, didn't come off the hand right. And I was so fastball my first year coming out. But I did this really cool thing, and I got my whole mechanics digitally mapped. And it showed what was firing, my hips, then my torso, and then your elbow and your hand supposed to fire. But my hand and elbow were firing damn near before my hips were. So I wasn't really incorporating any part of my legs within my motion. So being able to add my hips and make that as consistent as possible and try to slow everything else up top and use my hand kind of as the leverage for the speed and, the accuracy, where it changed a lot of things, and the accuracy obviously has gone up, but it's actually added some MPH to my throwing power too. So it's been a really good process.
That had to be a pretty cool feeling whenever somebody says, like, yeah, you have one of the strongest arms the NFL has ever seen, and we just want to let you know you're not even using like what you're supposed to be using. That had to be like a pretty cool day, because I assume whenever those results are coming back, for you, there might have been a little anxiety. Like, all right, I'm excited to kind of learn about me a little bit. I'm about to learn more about me. And then what is this thing that you did? You said you got your body tracked. And then whenever they tell you, like, yeah, you're not even doing anything what you're supposed to be doing at all, basically. We don't know how you got to this point without using your legs. But now that we are here, that was probably a very cool feeling to be like, oh my God, I can only get better from here, as opposed to probably a little bit of anxiety whenever you're sitting through waiting for the process to find out what it was.
It definitely was an awesome feeling. But I was sitting there with a couple other quarterbacks, and I was the last guy to get talked about. So everybody else was like, oh, your hips firing at such a good rate and everything's sequencing right. And the next quarterback, your hips are firing such a great rate. And they get to me, it's just like, yeah, dude, you're not doing any of this. So it was like a wake-up call to me, like, okay, maybe I should start, incorporating some new clubs in my bag and trying to hit a 60-degree and this and that. And it's funny that I use golf as that metaphor, because I've actually learned a lot of my throwing from my swing in golf. And I don't know, I did that Top Golf deal with you at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And I don't know if you remember that, but it was just, I was hitting that slice and I was hitting the slice and I was putting it in the back of the end zone or back of the end thing. But I've toned it down and I can actually work the ball a little bit better now in my actual golf game. And I think it's actually correlated to what I can do on the football field too.
Well, as you were explaining that your hand was in front of your hips, like that was just classic golf metaphor that you were making there. So as you were saying that, I kept thinking of your golf swing, because even though that thing was flying everywhere, you were slaughtering the golf ball. I think that is one thing we all took away from that, is like, Josh Allen might have hit a ball today like 400 yards. That might have actually. Now, granted, you had no clue where it was going, which, by the way,
not at all.
You're out there hacking. You weren't really golfing at that point. You were just swinging at that thing. And it was awesome to watch. Good for you. How is the offense? Like, for instance, Patrick Mahomes last year, he was on the barbershop with LeBron, and I'm waiting for your invite onto that show. Mm-hmm. But he said in there he said in there that he didn't really understand how to read a defense until like last year or something like that. And you listen to a lot of other quarterbacks that have played before, and they're like, it takes some real time to be able to understand what the hell a defense is doing, because it's so sophisticated in the NFL as opposed to college. Are you at the point where you can start seeing things and dissecting defenses a little bit? Or do you think that's still something that'll continue to happen, like every quarterback basically says you continue to learn about?
No, I definitely think it's starting to happen. Not only that, marrying your concept within your system and trying to decipher a defense. I think that's a whole, like, guys can be like, oh, okay, this is cover 4. I see the guy sitting inside, corners are off at this amount of depth. But when you can incorporate that and say, okay, this is the concept that we have, I can manipulate the corner by keeping my eyes here. If that safety doesn't get off the hash in time, I can rip. Like, there's different, obviously, levels to it. And you see the guys that have been in the league for a long time, like Aaron and Tom and even Drew, like, they're looking at one guy. Like, as long as he moves, I know exactly where I'm going. If he moves to the left, I'm throwing to the right. If he moves to the right, I'm throwing to the left. And it's just this really cool feeling now being in year 3 with Coach Dable and having the same verbiage and the same system that I've had. I know the concepts that I like. Dable throws out any concept that I doesn't like, and then I can go marry it up and see the field and whatever the defense is doing. I feel like I have a good concept of what we're doing.
I was roommates with Curtis Painter for the first training camp that we had. He was backup, obviously. So I got a chance to kind of watch them have meetings at night, because Peyton would come by just as a camaraderie building thing. And then Sorgi would come by, Jim Sorgi, classic NFL backup for a long time, who deserves a lot of credit for the success that the Colts had for a long time, because the backup quarterback's so important. But they would do homework assignments, right? The backup quarterbacks had homework assignments for Peyton. And it was like, all right, you're trying to get a read on anybody on the defensive side. I don't care if it's a safety. I don't care if it's a corner. If they flip their feet one particular way in one particular coverage, I want to know it. And then you kind of like, you see in the game where Peyton is literally just waiting for one guy, and it could be a small little tell of the way he lines up with his feet. And if the guy lines up with like a square foot, he's like, all right, I know exactly what it is. And you see him just like looking around. He's trying not to give away who he's looking at, but then he look at the guy and he'll go away, and then he looks at the guy again. And he's like, oh, this is cover 4, easy. Okay, here we go. We're going to do this. Bingo, bango. I bet you that is something that whenever you get to the point where you're like, okay, I have a tell for this particular week, that has to be so comforting to know, like, okay, I know what they're going to do. I know what we can do in this with our system, as opposed to the first year where you were probably just out there like, do we have 11 guys on the goddamn field? Like, yeah. I assume it's been awesome to kind of watch the game slow down right in front of you.
Yeah, it definitely has been. And there's been instances in the game where, I see what the defense does beforehand and I make the right adjustment. And then you go out there and you execute the play, and it feels so good when you do that. And it's just not a reactionary thing, but you didn't just beat them with your physical talent. You beat them with your mind. And obviously, as a progression, that's where quarterbacks want to continue to beat defenses, is with their mind and kind of see things before they happen. So we're still working in that area. But as far as what we're doing right now, our offense is extremely efficient, especially on first down. Our third down conversion rate is really good. And like you said, though, it takes all 11 guys on the field and takes the offensive coordinator to be calling the right plays and us going out there and executing.
So everybody was bashing your deep ball throws, accuracy or whatever, and it's a very interesting thing to bash people whenever it involves other people. Like for instance, Kirk Cousins, we talked to him the other day and they were all talking about how primetime games he would lose. But then you look at Kirk Cousins' stat line, it's like Kirk had a good game, actually. Like, Kirk didn't lose the primetime game, but it's just like, well, Kirk stinks because he loses those games. It's like, well, Kirk doesn't actually stink. Maybe somebody else stinks, and that's why they lost. And for you, it was like, well, he can't hit the deep ball. His deep ball percentage is so low on completion. And I'm like, I love Cole Beasley. Okay, he's a great rapper. He's an incredible wide receiver. You two have been quite a tag team, to be honest with you, watching. But what has it been like adding Stefon Diggs to the team? Because it feels like that is something that has initially helped immediately with the deep balls, because you got a guy like that's not just something that any wide receiver can do, is go get a deep ball or make a big play. Stefon Diggs is a game wrecker. Whenever he got added to the squad this past offseason, I assume that was something you were like, hey, let's go ahead and celebrate this, but also let's build up our chemistry as fast as possible, which could be good for everybody. Yeah,
he's been unbelievable. Not even just his play, but his attitude, his work ethic, the energy that he brings to the locker room. He's a team first guy, and he really is. And he had that bad rap in the media before he came here, and this was a kind of a chance to refresh and restart for him. And he's been nothing but great. I've never once heard anything negative come out of his mouth. When we're in the game, all he does is tell me, "Hey, keep making the right decisions. Don't try to force it to me. Just make the right decisions." And he's been a leader on this team. He really has been. And a lot of guys have learned from him. When you've got a room with Steph and John and Cole, they're able to kind of teach some of these young guys that we have in the room. They've taken it in stride. And you had a guy like Gabe Davis, who's a rookie, but feels like he's been playing the league for a couple of years. And, he's a big reason why, too, we're able to have the success on offense that we do. He's able to go in there and block these linebackers and make plays when his number's called, too.
You guys, there hasn't been much chatter about the Bills this year. You guys have kind of, you know what I mean? There hasn't been much chatter. Though. You like that?
Yeah.
There hasn't been any. I mean, they're really. I mean, early there was, right? Early there was chatter, and then that Tuesday night game against the Titans, which was just completely circumstances absolutely ridiculous. And then since then, it hasn't really heard much. How do you feel like in the AFC East? Because everybody knows, right? Big Bad Tom is out of there. Okay, the Patriots seem to be a different squad, although they're going to be able to compete with anybody because of the team they have, the coaching staff they have. The Dolphins, they're still in the middle of figuring out who's going to play quarterback. The Jets, whatever. But you can't say that, I can. But it feels like the AFC East coming into the season, you guys had to know opportunity time, like you said, 1995 since then. But now in the middle of the season, it has to feel pretty good. Like, hey, we can really go and get this thing. Not that you didn't have that last year or the year before that, but it has to feel pretty good knowing that potentially a division that was dominated by one particular team for a long time, now the division is back open for sale almost, and it's like, why not us? Why not Bills Mafia?
Exactly. Why not us? And but again, we're sitting at 8-3, and 8 wins doesn't win you the division unless you're in the NFC East. So
That was awesome. Hey, John, that was awesome.
no, but in all seriousness, Coach McDermott preaches playoff caliber, and our goal is to get in the playoffs. And once you get in the playoffs, anybody's got a chance to win it. The easiest way to get in the playoffs is winning your division. So that's been our goal and our mindset ever since we've stepped foot back here in August or whatever month that we got back here. And Coach, he's been doing a great job with us and trying to project us in the right direction. So we're just following that lead.
The boys got some questions for you, but before we get to that, what the hell were you thinking with the annexation of Puerto Rico in the playoffs and then earlier this season? You're middle of the play, and you're pitching the ball, and obviously when you're running full speed and you pitch, there's a chance it's going to be inaccurate. What the hell is going on? And how do we – what the hell happened out there? What was going on, Josh?
Was that in the playoff game?
Yes, we were watching it. I'm like, come, you were driving, I think, right? You still had like a minute some left. It wasn't like it was the last play of the game. And I respect the fact you're like, I'm going to make a play here. But I was like, gee, what? Yeah. Josh, have a little bit of care for the damn football, Josh Allen, because I was pulling hard for you and the Bills in that run. Is that just the type of guy you are, though, huh? Let's make a play. Let's go ahead and do this thing at all times. And have you had to curve that?
I felt like I've been trying to curve it, but when I'm in the heat of the moment and I see an opportunity to try to make a play, like it's just natural instinct for me to do it. And if it were to have been completed, Dawson Knox might still be running to this day. So, I think I'd do it all over again. It was able to stop the clock. We ended up, tying the game and forcing OT. And obviously, we wish we had that game back. And I missed a couple opportunities that I still think about to this day. But that's one of them that I don't really care for too much or complain about too much. Like I went with my decision and I made it, and I got to live with that one.
You watching the film of that playback, and because you obviously the internet had the same reaction I did. It was like Josh, what are we doing here? And then you watch the film back from all angles, and you're like, yeah, how come nobody's talking about literally if he's still running at this point? You said so. That was a wide open, huh? You knew that was guaranteed touchdown. That ball gets completed.
I thought so.
Oh, you thought so. Right. I respect that. Tone Diggs, what do you got, bub?
Josh, mine is actually building off of that because I want to talk about like when you talked about beating teams, beating defenses with your brain, but like when you get out of the pocket and you break the line of scrimmage and you are on the run, like it seems like you do not give a shit about your body. Like I mean, last week you decided just to run head on with Bosa. Like, do you think about saving your body at all when you get outside of the pocket?
I'm starting to. My body's probably hurting more than it should be right now at my age and this point in my career. But it's something I've been able to learn from, and sometimes it takes trial and error to understand what you can and can't do. But I've slid a few times this season, which is going in the right direction.
I've slid a few times this season. This was so when we had Andrew, right? Because you're both, physically imposing men, big men. So every single level of football that you've ever played, you've been more athletic than the person and probably bigger than the people that are trying to tackle you. And this is the same thing with Andrew. Andrew is massive. Well, go ahead. You were going to say something?
No, in high school, I was a little guy.
Oh, you did the growth spurt thing? That's why you ended up at a small school?
Junior college is really like the only time where like I felt like I was bigger and more athletic. Like in high school, my baseball coach called me Tortuga, which is tortoise in Spanish. So I was like legit. I was pretty short. I was extremely thin, and I couldn't move I had cement feet. Like I couldn't move.
And then you just hit a growth spurt at like 17 or 18, or what happened?
Yeah, just about a couple inches, and put on about 25 pounds in junior college, eating by myself, eating a bunch of fast food. So it wasn't all good weight, but it helped.
Oh, so that's why you like throwing the body around, because you never had it. Okay, so that I guess that's probably a bit, yeah, all right, yeah. So that's a little bit different than Luck, but watching Luck play, he was you jumped over that guy, almost got a helmet. I remember from your rookie year, almost got a helmet that would have been a rough night or whatever for you, maybe a couple weeks there. But like watching Andrew play, and I could never say this to him because of the position, whatever, like I'm a punter, I should not be speaking to the quarterback who is a first overall draft pick, and how to play football. But if he keeps himself safe, like it helps all of us. You know, like, hey,
Yeah.
if you're healthy, it helps. All of us are much better. So we appreciate the fact that you want to run people over and you want to gain every single goddamn yard on every single play. But if you're out, like, we're all screwed, basically. Has anybody had that conversation with you? Or is that just something you've kind of been learning?
The best ability is availability, right?
Yeah.
That's the saying. So I've been able to kind of learn that. But the times I feel like I've missed games, though, it's my rookie year. I was standing in the pocket. I threw and got my elbow kind of dinged up. And in college, I ran a little bit, and that was a different story. But so
you're a freak athlete, though. So I could see it just like with Andrew. Like, Andrew was very fast. He was athletic. He was big. So you could see how the human side of that would be like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but also I could probably pick up the first down right here, no problem. Even if I'm going to take a shot, who cares? I'll deal with that tomorrow. And everybody's always like, yeah, but those shots are going to add up. And you get it. I don't have to tell you. You're a guy. Connor, what do you got for old Josh Allen, pal?
Yeah, Josh, massive Patriots fan. And as you have been leveling up each season, I've been leveling down, which is fun. But you mentioned not winning the division since 95, and obviously it's massive for the organization. But how much does it mean to win it for the city and Bills Mafia and the fans for you?
I mean, I definitely think that they deserve it. You know, here from the stories that I've been told early in the 90s, this place was like any other. Like the buzz, the energy around the city, you know, and that's what we want to bring back. We want to bring back that early 90s feel when we had J.K. and Thurman and Andre Reed, you know, doing the K-gun here, and just people went absolutely nuts for them. So, you know, it's our goal to bring a Super Bowl here and have the greatest party that Bills Mafia has ever seen, because it really will be that.
God, could you imagine the tables? Every Bills Mafia is awesome, and I know they banned the dildo throwing. I think that's something they should bring back, but it is insane up there. And you're the perfect guy for that team, by the way. And I think that's what Bills Mafia is like. This is our guy. Ty, what do you got?
Josh, it's funny that you mentioned that growth spurt, because I was actually going to ask if you ever considered maybe pitching professionally. I don't know if you know, but I'm assuming that you throw a baseball harder than hell. Have you ever had that tested, or do you know how hard you throw the football?
Yeah, I mean, I played baseball up until my senior year. I played all throughout high school, and I was probably humming right around 92, 93.
Before the growth spurt.
Yeah, before. So, I mean, if I got into a throwing program for a little bit, I don't know. I'm assuming I'd be in the mid-90s. So I did obviously have that aspiration as a kid growing up and wanted to be a professional athlete of some sort, but quarterback was, you know, football was the only sport for me. You know, I loved playing baseball, but it was just too damn boring.
Bingo. Yep. I appreciate that. I love what you just said right there. Before we let you go, and I know you got to get to work, and we appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for this. Before you leave, we have to ask you, what's the furthest documented football toss? I don't care if it's an NFL ball. I don't care if it's college ball, high school ball. What's the furthest documented in your eyes from you?
83.
Oh! Holy hell.
My God.
Yeah. In Wyoming, so it's 7,200 feet elevation with the.
Oh!
It doesn't count.
That doesn't matter. You still got to hum it.
You said doesn't matter. It was 83.
No, but I agree. But you still got to be able to throw it there. Was that an NFL ball, college ball? What was it?
It was a Nike Vapor Max.
They got the big laces on that thing too, so you can really, you know what I mean? You can really hum that thing. Yeah. Hey, good luck Monday night, dude. We appreciate your time so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
It's been really cool watching you, Josh. You know, it's been really cool watching you get better. It's like cool to watch.
Appreciate
it doesn't happen all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's been fun.
Some guys stink and get much worse. Yeah, you will. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Josh Allen. Thank you, dude. 8-3.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did we know that going into that conversation that the Bills were 8-3? Answer: no. Because they fell out of the conversation. They've completely fallen out of the conversation. The Miami Dolphins became the sexy team in the AFC East. After that Tuesday night Titans thing, they kind of fell off. They're like, oh, they don't got any more. 8-3. They're sitting in a prime position right now to go make a run. Good for Josh Allen. I like him a lot. And he did hit the hell out of a golf ball down there.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Out of the atmosphere.
Yeah, it was huge. And he said he had no idea where it was going. And I respect that because that's how a lot of us golf.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
83-yard throw, dude.
It's a hose.
By the way, I wanted to tell him that my first ever at bat, I was standing in the batter's box and that guy threw 92 and I go, no.